Hello everyone, we are from PIM MBA 2018 Qatar batch Group 4. Welcome you all to this iconic landscapes of Doha, which is an outcome of results-based leadership from the top hierarchy of the country to the bottom, embedded with vision and passion to change the trend and succeed. Today is all about architect Mr. Hisham Qaddumi, President of Arab Architects and former technical and planning advisor of the Emir Diwan's technical office in Qatar, who is one of the most important leaders and implementers of the iconic Sheraton building and the panoramic, eye-catching landscape of Corniche waterfront, which had been intended to be the cornerstone of the city's westward expansion. According to Mr. Hisham Qaddumi, in the Qatar of the early 1970s, the challenge was to take this country at the beginning of its development and infuse it with a sense of excitement and of belonging to an international community, while at the same time being rooted in its heritage and traditions. Architect Mr. Hisham Qaddumi had served during the 1970s and 80s as the planning and development advisor at the Emir Diwan, as well as technical and planning advisor of the Emir Diwan's technical office in Qatar, which was responsible for the development of the major projects during that period. This interview session will mainly focus on the leadership traits, challenges Mr. Hisham Qaddumi went throughout his career to redefine Doha's architecture from no man's land to a wonderland with mouth-watering landscapes. Enough of talking, and let us get into real action by meeting one of the most prolific architects, business leader who is a living legend beyond doubt for what he has done and what he is keep doing now, that is to lead through example.
We are from MBA 2018 Qatar batch, Group 4 from PIM. Today we are going to meet Mr. Hisham Qaddumi, President of Arab Architects, CEO of HQA Group, and former technical and planning advisor for Emir Diwan office, to talk about the leadership and its challenges. Good afternoon, Mr. Hisham.
Good afternoon to you. Welcome to our house.
And we certainly believe we know few about you, and we would like to hear a little more about yourself from your side.
Okay, well, I'll help as much as I can. In what sense you want me?
Just talk about yourselves a little more.
Your background
your background and all. Like we know few
Well,
about
we've been here in Doha for the last 45 years. We came in 1974. Before that, I was in Texas, working in Houston after graduating from the University of Texas in Houston. So from 74 till now, we've had this long association with Qatar.
Okay.
We came when very little physical development was
the time.
Could be seen, and now 45 years later, you see the difference.
Right. And there is a famous quote, sir, between the business leaders, and they're saying the leaders are born and not made. How do you see this yourself?
There is a certain amount of truth about that. I mean, you've got to have certain qualities, certain characteristics to be an effective leader.
Right.
You've got to have vision, you've got to be decisive, you've got to be able to act systematically, you've got to inspire people, on and on and on. Which of these qualities is you're born with and which is nurtured?
Right.
So I think, I tend to think you've got to have certain qualities.
Right.
But unless they are honed and unless they are developed in a very, very clear and systematic way, your effectiveness will be in question.
Right.
So you were given a massive responsibility to revamp the Doha, and you are the mastermind behind the iconic building. And
with the help of some good leaders here, Sheikh Khalifa and Sheikh Hamad and the royal family.
And the design and the concept all came from your mind.
it's an interactive process. I mean, nothing, you just don't sit there and all of a sudden you create things.
That's right.
So it's a combination of good research, innovative thinking, and lots and lots of support
From
from people who make decisions. And talking about leadership, I think that is the key element
That's
in
right.
the success of the Qatar story, is that on the strategic level, there were leaders who made the right decisions at the right time.
Right time.
And
Yeah.
we learn from them, actually.
Yeah. Can you speak about the journey from the technical director of Emiri Diwan and to the president of Arab Architect? How was your leadership evolved, and how was your journey through this
Well,
period?
finished with the Diwan Amiri and left in the late 80s. Then we started the Arab Architects in 1990
That's your own company.
in my own company.
That's right.
And we did work all over the Arab world. And then I came back to Doha in 1996 with the company.
That's right.
We opened the branch in here and started doing the first project we had was the Four Seasons
Four Seasons Hotel in Doha.
Hotel, yeah. And then it developed from there into many other projects. So
That's a quite long journey.
yeah, it's a long journey. It's a long journey. It's still going on.
That's yeah.
So we hope it will continue.
Inshallah.
And I know just you moved in from 1970s from Texas to Doha. And is there any instance you took a leadership for an event or a project and which you were not titled as a leader at the time? By voluntarily you took the leadership and carried out any...
I mean, you are given a responsibility. You are given a job to do.
Yeah.
And unless you realize what is exactly the mission of that job,
Right.
and unless you are disciplined enough
Right.
to apply the tools, then I think being given a title or not giving a title, you're not going to be an effective leader.
Right.
So I think it's a combination of, again, back into these characteristics that you need to have in order to take advantage of an opportunity to lead.
Right.
And I think, as they say, luck comes to people who are ready for the opportunity.
That's right.
So that applies as well in management. I mean, if you're prepared and then you see a trend coming, and again, this is one of the characteristics, is being able to read trends and and lead the trends rather than, and be in the lead of the trends rather than follow after it's too late. So yes, it is not necessary to be given a title.
Right.
But it is absolutely necessary to have
The responsibility.
the overall outlook and the overall commitment,
The passion.
The passion to do the job. Yeah, you've got to have passion. Without passion, you'll be bored.
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah.
You'll give up very fast.
Right.
So one of the greatest aspects is to enjoy what you're doing.
That's
Enjoy
right.
it. Yeah.
And that's the definition of passion.
That's a
You
drive.
enjoy it immensely.
That's
you
a
look
drive.
forward every morning that I'm going to there because I enjoy doing the work I'm doing. So it's actually working while you're vacationing, basically.
Right.
Yeah, moving on to the next questions. It's like the managing something is easy, but managing people is a bit tough. And how do you manage people? Because you have in a big leader role and manager role. Again,
You've got to bring to bear the characteristics that make you a leader. In this particular sense, how do you manage managers? First of all, you've got to be able to delegate correctly.
That's right.
You've got to delegate. But with delegation of power comes good monitoring. You've got to monitor. And you've got to monitor in a systematic and periodic way so that you can face the problems as they come and not become a manager of crisis and management by solving problem rather than seeing issues ahead of time. They've got to have faith in you.
That's
You've got
right.
to believe in your leadership. And that comes when you're straightforward, you are fair, you give everybody his due, but at the same time, you are frank.
Right.
You've got to tell people what you think.
Yes.
And then be able, after you finish sessions of review and monitoring, to start anew, not to, have a grudge, say, I've done this to me. And so it's a combination of all these things. And how do you apply it? Comes as you develop
Right.
in your career. And you always will face various types of managers, people who are prepared to take responsibility, people who still need some
pushing.
pushing. Some people need more monitoring than others.
Right.
The type I like is the one who really comes and says, "Leave it to me.
I will do it.
I will do it.
I'll do it." But he does it.
That's
He
right.
doesn't come
End
later
of the
and say,
day.
"Wait a minute now. There has been a problem." That is, to me, the weak manager who always have an excuse for his failure to do a certain thing.
That's right.
And unfortunately, you meet it a whole lot, So you've got to have basically the power to inspire, but the power to control in a fair and equitable way.
Equitable way. You have answered the following question also in your previous. That was the second question. How important was the delegation? And you have answered that.
No, delegation is important. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you get
Right.
it. They asked
Yeah.
one particular billionaire in the early 60s, a guy who used to be the wealthiest man in the world at the time. And they asked him, what is the story behind your success? Why are you successful? And his famous answer was, because I had very good lieutenants, that I delegated power to them. So it goes without saying, unless you have good assistance and very good pattern of delegation with responsibility, you cannot accomplish a whole lot.
That's true.
You cannot accomplish.
Thank you, Mr. Hisham. Like these days, we see ethical behavior is a very expensive things you can expect from a leader, because we normally hear from the news and everything, the unethical behavior is quite common in nowadays. But as we know, you are one of the ethical leader from the last 45 years and continually contributing to Doha's development. How do you value it for an ethical behavior for a leader?
It's very essential. It's very essential to have a set of rules to govern your behavior.
Right.
And that is the definition of ethical. I mean, you're not a prophet, you're not a pure man, but you have a set of references in behavior, in the way that you deal with people, in the way you deal with issues, in your honesty, in your openness, in your transparency, without which you, in the long run, you cannot
sustain.
You cannot succeed. So ethics is extremely important, and it's become, as there is more responsibility due to social media and more, accountability. The issue of ethics is surfacing more and more powerfully, because the whole world is now in judgment.
Right.
Not just in a bench.
Yeah.
The whole world is in judgment.
Yes.
And things can get wrong for a person very, very fast. And we've witnessed a whole lot of cases recently.
Right. And what are the core competencies you believe that required for a leader to guide his team to the success?
You could name any number of competencies. As we said earlier in the discussion, the most important is basically the ability to inspire. People do not want to work for somebody who does not inspire them.
Right.
Secondly, you get to be able to be decisive.
Right.
You know, people look for decisions from you.
Yes.
You know, so thirdly, you get to be, as we said before, you've got to be fair.
Yes.
And then I think you need also a sense of balance between what is business and what is your life.
Like,
Yes.
I always look at people and say, what are they beyond their business credentials? And to me, to stop at saying this guy is just a businessman is not enough.
Okay.
I've got to see why is there another dimension to him.
Right.
You know, examples now are galore. You know, Buffett,
Warren Buffett.
You know, Warren Buffett and Gates and others are setting new examples of corporate responsibility. In other words, it's not enough to succeed beyond imaginable limits. It is you've got to add a little bit more to who you are as a human being.
Absolutely.
And I think, to me, this should be added to the core competencies.
that's right.
Right.
But we could go on and on. There are many other
there is plenty
attributes.
of things like
Depends how much detail you want.
Right.
Yeah. The business environment in the contemporary world is more challenging and competitive. And
Here in Doha, I mean, or in general?
in general in Doha also, like as a management student or an MBA student, and can you please share us your like experience or a strategy, so how to sustain in a competitive business environment?
As we said, we've got to have what it takes, first of all, to start a business and to maintain a business. And we can go through the characteristic, but we've indicated that before. In order, I think sustainability is the issue. You can start something, but how to sustain it is the big problem.
Yeah.
And sustainability comes with a number of things that you need to do. One is to be able to read the trends.
That's right.
Yeah.
You've got to know,
Should be updated with the trends.
as we said before, you've got to know where you're going
Yeah.
and what business are you in.
That's right.
Sometimes redefining your business can help you a lot. They tell the story about IBM, you know, when they started doing typewriters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that was their business. IBM was doing typewriter. But then in the late 40s, early 50s, they discovered or they reinvented themselves by saying, we are not in the business of typewriting or typewriters. We are in the business of data processing and information processing. So, you know, doing a typewriter function is data processing, but they widened it.
Yeah.
And their success, the huge success, was based on that new concept.
Right.
That's right.
So that from limitation, they sensed a trend towards information processing and data processing.
Yeah.
And that opened all the gates.
Broader perspective.
Computers, to do personal
Computers.
desktops, to do the whole thing, you know.
Right. And every leaders has a different styles. For each leaders has a different style and different the characters and different way of leading the people. And what's your style of you valuing your clients or value your employees by in terms of leadership?
You've got to value both.
Right, equally.
You've got to start with the precept that the client is always right, even when he's wrong.
When he's wrong.
So we've got to start with that. I mean, I'm saying that with a bit of, hyperbole. But you've got to respect the requirements, especially in our business, in the construction, design, and project management. Often, sometimes you think that you've got to do something that satisfies you when your basic responsibility is to answer the true requirements of your client.
Yes.
And sometimes people can fall, they say, well, the client doesn't know, the client doesn't understand, I'm going to substitute him. That's very dangerous.
Okay.
But at the same time, you've got to be straight enough and honest enough with the client to tell him when he's wrong.
That's
All
right.
right. Be
Or
bold.
give him your opinion. Say,
Be bold on them.
yeah. And we pride ourselves that we are that type of company. When we believe that there is something to be said, we say it, but gently and nicely, as you know.
Yeah, and the decision making is a key management role or a key role for a leader. And certain times you have all the facts, and based on that you can make a decision or come out with a decision. And most of the time there cannot be certain facts which you don't anticipate, or you don't have the absence of facts, and you need to take a critical decision. That is very normal for a leader or a leader or a manager in the company. So is there any instances where you have come across with the absence of certain facts, you have to make a critical decisions?
It goes without saying that you've got to have enough information to make a learned and well-researched decision. And I would personally, I'd like to do that. I'd like to get all the facts.
Right.
But as you said, at certain times you've got to make a decision when all the facts are not available. This is where experience and intuition and general capability comes in. And lots of people made intuitive decisions in their lives without the full information, and were proven very right. And some did it, and they were proven disastrous.
That's right.
So there is no way that you can judge. But the important thing is that you base, or you intend to base, your decision on facts.
That's right.
And on research, and on as much information as possible.
Yeah.
They say information overload or data overload gives you pattern recognition. So you get to detect a pattern.
That's right.
So you don't have to have all the information, but the moment you detect a pattern in the information, then that's the starting point for making a decision.
Yeah.
And it's always better to wait till you have all the facts, but sometimes you just don't have that luxury.
Yeah. If you don't mind, is there any remarkable instances or example which you can share? You made a decision with the absence of certain facts, and it came out, your decision was very, very accepted and recognized.
All my decisions were right. I'm just joking. Just joking. I don't know. They cannot
especially when you're
recall a specific. But any businessman, I don't care. I mean, take any of the big stars of the industry now. They made excellent decisions, but at certain time did a series of bad decisions. Jobs is one example. After his great success with Apple,
yeah,
he made a few very bad decisions with Next, and with Lisa, and with other ventures. So this is part of a parcel of the
business,
of the growing up in business, and of. But I think at the end, it is your way of thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Is very important. You cannot avoid some bad decisions, but it is the method of thinking, method of making decisions. Is it intuitive only, or is it based on information? Is it because of anger? Is it because of reaction? Is it because of what? That determines the quality of your decision.
And we came with lots of questions, Mr. Hisham.
Go ahead.
But
Go ahead.
all of your answers covered all the questions
All the
we're supposed
questions.
to ask you. But this is called the real leader we inspired. It's the most inspired leader. And before I concluding, and I would like to ask, what's your message for the future leaders
or budding leaders?
Budding leader, you've got to work hard, first of all.
Right.
that is the essence of success. Secondly, you've got to be prepared.
Okay.
In other words, whatever field you go in, you've got to know what it is, what are its space, and how do you take advantage of that. Thirdly, you've got, especially now,
Right.
with the advent of communication and social media and so on and so forth, you've got to be innovative.
Okay.
I mean, the whole world is a stage. Everybody has new ideas. So although it has become easier to start a business and become a leader, it is at the same time becoming hard because the competition is in millions rather than in your neighborhood.
Yes.
So I think you've got to balance your life between how much commitment to work and how much commitment to family as you're building your family.
Right.
Because it is often people do something at the expense of the other. So that sense of balance we talked about earlier is very, very important. Again, we come back to being able to lead people. They say sometimes in early courses in management, project management, that good project management is 75% people management rather than
Right.
technical management.
That's right.
So you've got to have these skills, something similar to that.
And really thank you for your time. And it's despite it's very short invitation,
Short
for
invitation.
you, and you allowed us
No,
a time for interview.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And we really value your thoughts and experience you shared, which are very unique from a leader like you. And definitely these thoughts and your shares and experience will help us and motivate the future leaders. And inshallah,
Thank you.
all
Thank you
the
for
best for
coming,
you,
and
sir.
thank you.
Thank you so much
the
for your time,
opportunity.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.